Good evening, it's Wednesday the 21st of May and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Dorme strategy. Trump launches $175 billion Golden Dome missile defense program. Power play. Putin visits Kursk towards nuclear plant after Russian troop victory. Steel showdown. Humanoid robots to battle in world's first live-streamed boxing match in Hangzhou.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Prashansa Gunawardana.
Good evening once again. President Trump has unveiled plans for $175 million Golden Dome missile defense shield, selecting a Space Force general to lead the effort. The ambitious program aims to counter growing threats from China and Russia with advanced space-based technology.
It's a pretty evil world out there.
And tonight, Donald Trump says he has the answer to protect America. The US president commissioning his so-called Golden Dome.
Hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, and advanced cruise missiles, all of them will be knocked out of the air.
The Golden Dome is an air defence bubble. It would sit over North America and use a constellation of satellites and space-based weapons to detect any incoming threat. The idea was first raised by Trump last year, the president suggesting the missile defence shield would be a system similar to Israel's Iron Dome.
The Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space.
A mammoth undertaking, which Trump says will be ready by the end of his term at a cost of $272 billion. An ambitious timeline and price tag. Estimates predict a system like this would likely cost almost 3 times that amount and take the next 2 decades to put in place.
This right here, the Golden Dome for America, is a game changer. It's a generational investment in the security of America and Americans.
And potentially America's northern neighbours.
We'll be discussing Canada. They want to hook in and they want to see if they can be a part of it.
Donald Trump has repeatedly said he is creating a new golden age. Tonight, the US president adding in the Golden Dome. In the United States, Lauren Tamazi.
Russian President Vladimir Putin made his first visit to the Kursk region since Russian forces expelled Ukrainian troops last month. The visit included meetings with volunteers and a tour of a nuclear plant, making a symbolic return to the reclaimed territory.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has made his first visit to the Kursk region since Russian forces expelled Ukrainian troops last month. This visit underscores the region's strategic importance, which has seen heavy military activity in recent weeks. During his trip, Putin met with local volunteers who have been assisting with recovery efforts, highlighting the role of community support in rebuilding the region after the conflict. Putin also toured the Kursk, the second nuclear power plant, an important asset in Russia's energy infrastructure. The Kremlin's focus on Kursk signals its intention to solidify control over areas reclaimed from Ukrainian forces. Putin's return to the region serves as a powerful reminder of Russia's commitment to maintaining its influence despite ongoing tensions with Ukraine and the West.
Following a store call between President Trump and Putin, Kyiv's European allies have imposed fresh sanctions on Moscow. The move underscores growing frustration over the lack of progress in ending the 3-year conflict still raging in eastern Ukraine.
With efforts to bring about a ceasefire in Ukraine at a standstill, the EU-27 are piling the pressure onto Moscow.
The EU has approved its 17th sanction package against Russia, targeting nearly 200 Shadow Fleet ships. New measures also address hybrid threats and human rights. More sanctions on Russia are in the works. The longer Russia wages war, the tougher our response.
Russia's Shadow Fleet are ships not obviously Russian, often unflagged, and use their anonymity to transport Russian oil around the world, circumventing sanctions. The 17th round of EU sanctions extends the existing embargo on Russian seaborne oil to some of these vessels the bloc has identified. Meanwhile, in coordination with the bloc, The UK announced 100 new measures, targeting weapons supplies, the shadow fleet, financial institutions they believe are helping the Kremlin work around sanctions, and the Social Design Agency, a Russian IT company believed to be essential to Kremlin misinformation campaigns. Separately, a G7 agreement prohibits members from insuring or shipping Russian petroleum to third countries when it is being sold for less than $60 a barrel. The UK and EU may push this week to lower that cap. But while pressure ramps up from one side of the Atlantic, Donald Trump, the self-styled broker of a future peace agreement, came away from a phone call with Vladimir Putin on Monday, seeming to have lost interest in negotiations.
I think something's going to happen, and if it doesn't, I'd just back away and they're going to have to keep going. Again, this was a European situation. It should have remained a European situation.
President Zelensky has said US sanctions would determine Russia's ability to continue the war. But after Monday's phone call, Washington is instead apparently working towards a normalization of relations with Moscow.
Amid mounting trade war tensions and slowing growth, China's central bank has cut its benchmark lending rates for the first time since October. The move signals Beijing's latest effort to stabilize the economy and counter external financial pressures.
Trade war fears are hanging over China's economy, and Tuesday saw Beijing policymakers play their latest hand in response. The country's central bank cut its benchmark one-year loan prime rate by 0.1 of a percentage point to 3%. Its 5-year rate, key to setting mortgage prices, fell by the same amount. Earlier in the day, several of the country's top commercial banks also cut their deposit interest rates. That was seen as guiding smaller lenders to make similar reductions. One economist told Reuters that all the rate cuts are meant to boost lending and stimulate consumption. The moves are part of a package of measures announced before China and the US agreed a truce on tariffs at talks in Geneva. That deal spurred analysts to raise their forecasts for Chinese growth this year, but huge uncertainty remains. Nomura chief China economist Ting Lu said it would still be quite challenging for Beijing to hit its 5% growth target for the year, unless policymakers step in with more stimulus and reforms. Figures out earlier in the week showed new bank loans tumbling and home prices staying flat, pointing again to areas of weakness in China's economy.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news from the other side. Welcome back. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio defended cuts to foreign aid and diplomatic spending, telling the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that Trump administration remains engaged globally.
We are engaged in the world, but we're going to be engaged in a world that makes sense and that's smart.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Tuesday insisted that the Trump administration was not withdrawing from the world. That's as Rubio fought criticism by some members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee of the administration's cuts to foreign aid and diplomatic budgets.
You're not going to like all the changes, but I want you to know what the intent of the changes are. It is not to dismantle American foreign policy, and it is not to withdraw us from the world. Because I just hit 18 countries in 18 weeks. That doesn't sound like much of a withdrawal.
Rubio said that many of the programs he has cut did not serve U.S. interests, and that Washington would remain the world's most generous donor of humanitarian aid.
I didn't ask.
Senator, please let the Secretary have you.
In a sometimes feisty first testimony as Secretary of State, Rubio was challenged over his role in the administration's crackdown on immigration, Trump's engagement with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and the decision to prioritize the resettlement in the U.S. of white South Africans versus refugees from elsewhere. Here's Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen.
And while you've turned away from a genocide in Sudan and invented one in South Africa, you teamed up with President Trump to throw the Ukrainian people under the bus and have been played like a fiddle by Vladimir Putin. And I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job based on what I know.
Well, that's just a flippant statement, Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
On Russia, Rubio said Putin had not received any real concessions in the U.S. effort to initiate talks to end the war in Ukraine. In an exchange with Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen, Rubio defended Trump, saying he was trying to end the war.
And what the president's trying to do is end a war. He's trying to end a bloody, costly war that neither side can win, and people are dying every single day. And so, but this notion that I don't, what has Putin gained throughout this? He hasn't gotten a single concession. He hasn't gotten a single sanction lifted.
Republicans have praised Rubio, who has become a crucial figure in the Trump administration. He currently is also serving as Trump's acting national security advisor, the USAID administrator, and the acting archivist of the United States.
Following President Trump's decision to lift U.S. economic sanctions on Syria, the European Union has announced it will follow suit. The coordinated move marks a significant shift in international policy towards Damascus amid ongoing efforts to stabilize the region.
The European Union agreed on Tuesday to lift its economic sanctions on Syria. That comes 1 week after President Donald Trump announced the U.S. would lift its own Syria sanctions. However, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said the move was contingent on what she called progress.
There can be no peace without the path to economic recovery, and we all need a stable Syria. Is everything really ideal there? No, it is not. It's very clear, but I think we need to give the Syrian people a chance.
It's been 6 months since the collapse of Bashar al-Assad's rule over Syria. Its new rulers are trying to move quickly to revamp an economy shattered by more than a decade of civil war. The new leadership has prompted the EU and the US to rethink their Syria policies. After the EU announced its decision Tuesday, Syria's foreign minister said the move will boost his country's security and stability. Also in Tuesday's meeting, EU ministers discussed the situation in Gaza and relations with Israel. Pressure has grown on Netanyahu's government as it renews its offensive in Gaza. Kallas said the EU will review its trade deal with Israel.
What comes to the association agreement and the discussion around that, I will not say numbers and I will not say member states, but I can say it was a huge majority for this. I think what it tells is that the countries see that the situation in Gaza is untenable.
There was no immediate comment from Israel on the EU decision. Israeli officials says its Gaza offensive targets Hamas for cross-border attacks on October 7, 2023.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is heading to Washington this week to repair ties with the United States. His visit includes plan to pitch business opportunities to Elon Musk's companies, signaling a push to strengthen economic and diplomatic relations.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa touched down in the U.S. on Tuesday ahead of a high-stakes meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. Ramaphosa will look to reset strained relations with Trump, who has taken aim at South Africa over the country's land reform policy and its genocide case against U.S. ally Israel before the International Court of Justice. South African officials have been preparing a trade proposal ahead of the Wednesday meeting with the aim of mending the relationship. A trade ministry spokesperson said Ramaphosa will offer Trump a broad trade deal. He also plans to discuss business opportunities for Tesla and Starlink, companies owned by Trump's billionaire ally Elon Musk, who was born and raised in South Africa and has amplified claims of anti-white racist policies that Pretoria rejects. Ramaphosa's spokesperson said discussions could include favorable tariffs for Tesla's imports into South Africa in return for building electronic vehicle charging stations and licensing for Starlink. South Africa's agriculture minister will be part of the delegation and says he wants to secure trade benefits for farmers. South African agricultural products currently enjoy duty-free access to the U.S. market under the African Growth and Opportunity Act. That's now at risk under Trump's tariff regime. The Trump administration also cut funding to the country in February and last week granted refugee status to a group of white South Africans it said were facing racial discrimination, a claim the South African government denies. 30 years after the end of apartheid, white people, who make up about 7% of South Africa's population, are still richer than the black majority of about 82% by every economic measure and still own 3/4 of the country's freehold farmland.
Some tense weather updates now. Kentucky faces mandatory evacuations as severe storms and tornadoes threat looms over the region. With 9 states at risk of tornadoes, authorities are urging residents to prepare for potential devastation as powerful weather systems continue to move across the area.
Tonight, mandatory evacuations in areas of hard-hit Kentucky, where new storms are already rolling in.
Prepare to seek shelter.
After more than 50 confirmed tornadoes and 28 storm-related deaths since Friday, 37 million people across the Midwest and South are now at risk from more severe weather, with the potential for large hail and devastating twisters. Anticipated 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, potentially turning debris piles into projectiles. In Illinois, everyone in the state's capital in Springfield urged to shelter in the basement.
Tornado warning on the top floor of the Capitol.
And in St. Louis, where 5 people died following Friday's tornado, frustration and calls for accountability.
No sir.
Nothing came through.
The mayor saying new procedures are now in place after the warning sirens failed to alert the public.
At the end of the day, the siren failure should have never happened, and it never will happen again.
2 top aides of Mexico City Mayor Clara Brugada were killed in a daylight ambush and gunmen on a motorbike in the city center. The attack has raised concerns over growing violence and insecurity in the Mexican capital.
A moment of silence was held for 2 top aides of Mexico City's mayor on Tuesday after they were shot and killed in the capital. Those killed were Brugada's private secretary, Jimena Guzman, and an advisor, Jose Munoz, whom she referred to as Pepe.
Jimena, una mujer.
Jimena was a wonderful, tireless, very good woman.
Buena, muy buena.
And Pepe, I've known him almost since he was a child.
Lo conozco casi de niño.
He was one of the most intelligent and responsible people I've ever met.
Y sumamente responsable.
Brugada said she shared her dreams and struggles with Guzman and Munoz over the years, and that the incident would be investigated rigorously. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said the people likely responsible for the killings were riding a motorcycle.
Nuestra solidaridad de apoyo.
We express our solidarity and support for the families of these 2 individuals who have worked in our movement for a long time. We know them, we stand with their families, with Clara, and we will give her all the support she needs from the Mexican government.
The Mexico City government has suffered attacks in the past. In 2020, the then Mexico City police chief was shot and injured in an assassination attempt that killed 2 of his bodyguards. The attack was blamed on one of the country's most powerful drug gangs, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel.
Time for a short break now. We'll be right back. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Hangzhou, China will host the world's first live-streamed humanoid robot boxing match, Iron Fist King, featuring 2 advanced G1 robots. Equipped with AI and motion control, they'll perform complex combat moves following last month's humanoid robot marathon in Beijing.
Hangzhou, China will host the world's first live-streamed humanoid robot boxing match this Sunday. The contest, titled Iron Fist King, organized by Unitree Robotics, features 2 G1 humanoid robots, each 1.32 meters tall and weighing approximately 35 kilograms. These robots are equipped with advanced AI and motion control systems, enabling them to perform complex combat moves, such as spinning kicks and rapid punches. Their design also allows for quick recovery from falls. The boxing event comes after the world's first half marathon with humanoid robots in Beijing last month as part of a series of robot competitions sponsored by China Media Group.
Epic Universe in Orlando, Florida opens its doors to the media, showcasing 3 of its 5 themed worlds, including Super Nintendo World and the Isle of Berg. The new park, the city's first in 25 years, opens on the 22nd of May.
Epic Universe in Orlando, Florida is set to revolutionize the theme park experience as it opens the doors to the media, offering a sneak peek at 3 of its 5 themed worlds. Among the highlights are Super Nintendo World, which immerses guests in the vibrant world of Mario and Donkey Kong, and the Isle of Berg, a Viking-inspired land from How to Train Your Dragon. The park is expected to be a major attraction with interactive experiences, thrilling rides, and beautifully designed worlds based on some of the most popular movies and games of recent years. As the first new theme park to open in Orlando in 25 years, Epic Universe will double the size of the Universal Orlando Resort. Opening to the public on the 22nd of May, the park promises a fresh and exciting addition to the region's entertainment scene, giving visitors the chance to step into iconic worlds like never before. With its groundbreaking attractions and immersive experiences, Epic Universe is poised to become a must-visit destination for theme park enthusiasts.
And with that, we come to the end of today's edition of World News Tonight. With the hopes of seeing you again, I'm Prashansa Gunawardana. And we leave you tonight with more visuals of Epic Universe in Orlando, Florida. Also, don't forget to send us your feedback through email at feedback.ad24english@derana.lk or via WhatsApp at 076-8057-933. Vinod Varnasurya will be joining you next with the Nightly Business Report. Thank you for watching and have a good night.